All right, and that's Busted by the fabulous John Conlee, and now joining me here live on the program, the man with his rose-colored glasses, Mr. John Conlee. John, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great talking to you.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank you so much for appearing here on the radio show. It's a true honor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome, and can you hear me all right?
I can.
Oh, good. Well, I know your time here is limited, so I guess maybe let's get started, if that's all right.
Sure.
So you were born and raised on a tobacco farm in Kentucky, correct?
Right, and it's a farm we still operate. We don't raise tobacco anymore, but we still have the farm, still run some cattle and, cut some hay and that kind of stuff.
Sure, and you really gained a love for farming growing up on that farm, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. It was the best way to be raised as far as I'm concerned, and I live on another farm here in Tennessee, and so I was able to kind of raise my kids in that same general theme. They didn't have to do the work on the farm like I did so much, but raised in the country at any rate.
Sure. And how old were you when you first learned how to play the guitar?
Well, I started taking guitar lessons when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, somewhere in there, and just never did learn the instrument that much. I mean, I took lessons for a number of years and learned, and I took piano as well, off and on during those years as well. So I learned to read music and all of that, but I would always get distracted by I wanted to sing, and so once I learned a few chords, I spent most of my practice time singing and playing chords as opposed to instrumental music.
So singing really came after you started to learn how to play the guitar?
Well, not very long. Like I say, once I learned 3 or 4 chords, I spent my time singing and accompanying myself out of songbooks more than I did playing the instrument itself.
Did you have an early musical influence?
Oh, not as such. When I hit my teenage years, I fell in love with Ray Charles's music, and I've always said that was my favorite. I love a lot of different people and a lot of different kinds of music, but if you were going to stick me on an island and I could only take one music with me, it would probably be Ray Charles. He did all kinds of different things, all formats, and he could sing the phone book and sell it, and I always admired that about him.
And, well, I guess, where was your first public performance?
Well, the very first thing I ever committed to memory, song-wise, was Love Me Tender, and it was a hit then. I was in the 4th grade, and I performed it for some school program at my school. That's also the most nervous I guess I've ever been. And so, growing up, I mean, from that point on, I was involved in music in school, all the different choruses you can be in junior high and high school, church music. We had a folk trio when I was in high school. So, music was always my hobby from that point on.
And you began performing on local radio around the age of 10, too, wasn't it?
Well, here's the deal. When those guitar lessons would end, which they only lasted 30 minutes on Saturday mornings, and, I had free time. Mom was still shopping or whatever around Lexington, so for the remaining time in town, I would go hang out at a local radio station in Lexington, Kentucky, and somehow the morning guy would let me, would allow me to do that, and, I just felt that's when I fell in love with broadcasting. And so a couple of times he would invite me to bring my guitar up, and he put me on the air with me singing a song, or whatever for a minute on the air. But those were just little guest shots. It that didn't become a regular thing or anything,
But you didn't really initially pursue music or even radio as a career.
No.
After high school, you became a licensed mortician, correct?
I started working part-time at a local funeral home in Versailles, Kentucky, which is my actual hometown. And a friend of mine had already started working there and talked about it so much that I really became curious as much as anything else about it. So I started working part-time my senior year in high school. I became interested enough in it to pursue it full-time. And so, as you say, when I graduated high school, I went straight into the funeral work and went to school, got my licenses, and did that for 6 years altogether.
And it was after those 6 years that you got your first radio announcer or DJ slot.
Yeah, my intention before I was exposed to the funeral profession, my intention from early high school was to go to college, major in the whatever department, the drama or whatever radio arts appeared in, and go from there. So radio had been on my mind for a long time. And after that 6 years, it was time for me to make a move. Either I needed to get more involved, try to become an owner somewhere at a funeral home, or scratch this old itch. And so I decided to jump out there, try to get a job. I did at Fort Knox, Kentucky, a first radio job, and worked at 3 different stations in Kentucky, and then put in my application at WLAC Radio in Nashville, was hired, and that's the only reason I moved to Nashville is because I got that job at WLAC.
And that was in 71, correct?
Yes, 71.